I feel like I'm living through a nightmare. This past week has been the most devastating time of my life. I found out that my younger sister, someone I have loved and cared for since the day she was born, has been having an affair with my husband, the man I trusted and built a life with. These are two of the people I believed would always have my back. People I never imagined would hurt me in such a cruel way. But turns out, not only did they sleep together, but my sister is now pregnant with his child. I feel so stupid. I had absolutely no clue that my husband was being unfaithful. There were no obvious signs, no suspicious behavior, nothing that made me question his loyalty. I trusted him completely, never once thinking he could be capable of something like this. The shocking truth only came to light when my sister decided to visit me. You see, she doesn't live in the same city as me or our parents. She had moved away when she was still married to her ex. A few years ago, her relationship with her husband crumbled because she struggled to get pregnant at the time. Her inability to conceive was one of the main reasons her marriage ended. Both my sister and her ex-husband went through multiple medical tests to find out why they weren't conceiving. But nothing was ever pinpointed as the exact issue. There was no clear medical reason preventing them from having a baby. The doctors reassured them that sometimes these things take time and that they should try to be patient. But patience has never been my sister's strong suit. She constantly pressured her ex, insisting they do whatever it took to have a baby. When conceiving naturally didn't work out, she turned to IVF, determined to make it happen no matter the cost. She underwent 2 rounds of IVF, each one more stressful and draining than the last. But both attempts ended in disappointment. This took a serious emotional and financial toll on her and her ex-husband. They spent a lot of money on the treatments, money they could barely afford, hoping that this would finally be the answer. At the time, I felt nothing but sympathy for her. She wanted to be a mother so badly, and it hurt me to see her struggling. I even gave her $1,000 as a gift, wanting to support her in any way I could. I didn't have a lot to spare, but I wanted to help her fulfill her dream of having a child. When IVF failed, my sister turned to adoption, but this is where her ex-husband finally put his foot down. He had been supportive through the fertility treatments, the doctor visits, and the heartbreak of failed IVF. But adoption was a step he simply wasn't comfortable with. He wasn't against children, but he didn't feel ready or willing to take on the responsibility of raising an adopted child. However, my sister isn't the type to take no for an answer. She kept pushing him, telling him that even if he wasn't on board, he should go along with it anyway for her sake. She made it clear that this was something she wanted more than anything, and in her mind, his feelings on the matter weren't as important as her dream of becoming a mother. My parents and I tried to reason with her too. We reminded her that adoption was a huge decision, one that both partners needed to be fully committed to. We warned her that if he wasn't comfortable with it now, he might never come around, and that would only lead to more issues down the line. But she didn't want to hear it. Eventually, she went ahead and adopted a young child. She was overjoyed, acting as if all her struggles had finally paid off. But true to his word, her ex-husband remained distant. He had already told her he didn't want this, and he stuck to that. He refused to take on the role of a father and wanted no real involvement in the child's life. As a result, their already fragile marriage started falling completely apart. The stress, the disagreements, and the resentment that had been building between them finally became too much to bear. With her ex refusing to take responsibility for the adopted child, my sister was trying to do everything on her own, but she was failing. Between working her part-time job and Trying to care for her child, she was stretched too thin. She didn't have the money to hire a nanny, and since her ex had made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with the child, he refused to contribute financially. My sister had no choice but to figure things out on her own, and in her desperation, she made a terrible decision. She started leaving the young child home alone for hours at a time while she went to work. She would leave food out for him, turn on the TV, and hope that he would be okay until she got back. During one of the mandated check-ins, the authorities found out what she had been doing. The moment they discovered that she had been leaving the child alone regularly, they acted quickly. Just 4 months after she had adopted him, the child was taken from her care as they deemed her dangerous and neglectful. I know she tried to fight it, probably hoping to get him back, but her case wasn't strong. Even the child himself didn't want to stay with her and her ex due to their constant fights. This spiraled my sister into more depression. Up until then, she had been struggling to cope with the pressures of motherhood, but at least she had something to hold on to. Now even that was gone. In the end, her ex walked away for good as she couldn't stop blaming him for everything. Since the divorce, she has remained mostly single. She never seemed to have any serious relationships, at least none that she talked about. Over the years, I did my best to be there for her. No matter what she had done or how much she had messed up, I helped her in every way I could, financially, emotionally, and in any other way she needed. I sent her money when she was struggling, made sure to check up on her through weekly video calls, and visited her whenever I had the chance. That's why this betrayal feels so gut-wrenching. I thought we were solid and that she would never hurt me in such a horrible way. But all this time, while I was calling her, checking on her and offering her my support, she was secretly sleeping with my husband behind my back. She was lying to my face, pretending to be my loving sister while carrying on an affair with the man I built my life with. This is why I always thought that she and I had a solid relationship. Never did I imagine that she would be sleeping with my husband on the side, brazenly and lying to me about it. When my sister first told me she was coming to visit this week, I was genuinely excited. It was rare for her to come and see me. She didn't like visiting our hometown because she preferred to avoid our parents, so most of the time I was the one making the effort to go and see her. I told my husband about her visit, expecting him to be excited too, as he would be seeing her after a long time, but he looked worried. His entire demeanor shifted and he asked me why she was coming. He even asked me if I could perhaps ask her to postpone her visit. This should have been my first red flag. However, I brushed off his comment, telling him that my sister rarely visited, so there was no way I was going to ask her to delay it. He didn't push it after that. He just went quiet, nodding stiffly and letting it go. Then, on the day of my sister's visit, my husband, out of nowhere, announced that he would be out all day. He told me he had decided to go out and play golf with his friends and wouldn't be back until late at night. That made me pause. My husband did play golf, but it was always on the weekends, never in the middle of a weekday. I asked him about it, confused. Since when do you play golf on a Wednesday? He shrugged, acting like it was no big deal. I just need a break, he said. It's not a big deal. Something didn't sit right, but I didn't argue. Later that day, when I heard the knock on the door, I rushed to open it to finally welcome my sister. The moment I saw her standing there, I immediately pulled her into a warm hug. I was genuinely thrilled to see her, so I didn't notice anything unusual at first. It wasn't until I stepped back that I caught sight of her expression. Stiff, almost tense. That was when my eyes drifted downward, and for the first time I saw it. Her hands were resting protectively on her stomach. I felt a jolt of confusion, my mind trying to catch up with what I was seeing. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but there was no mistaking it. My sister did seem to have a slightly noticeable baby bump. My brain scrambled for an explanation, but before I could even say anything, she spoke. I'm almost 3 months pregnant. My lips curled into a wide smile as I started to congratulate her. Oh my God, that's amazing! You're finally pregnant? I exclaimed, ushering her inside and helping her sit down. At the time, it felt like such a surreal moment. My little sister, the one who had struggled for so long, who had been through heartbreak after heartbreak trying to become a mother, was now expecting a child, just like she had always wanted. My sister, though, didn't look as excited as I. She had a sour expression on her face as her eyes darted around my home like she was searching for something or someone. She looked nervous as she asked me where my husband was. I blinked, caught off guard. Oh, he's out playing golf with his friends, I told her, still smiling. She shook her head as if in disbelief and asked, Really? In my excitement, I didn't even process the tone or the strange way she said it. I brushed past it and bombarded her with questions, my enthusiasm spilling out. Oh my God, tell me everything. How did you get pregnant? Do you know who the father is? Do you have a boyfriend, or did you secretly go for IVF? I looked at her expectantly, waiting for her to finally share the details of what I assumed was a long-awaited happy moment in her life. My sister took a deep breath, her fingers fidgeting against her belly. I could see it in her face. She was dreading whatever she was about to say. Her voice was hesitant, almost like she was preparing herself for a blowback. I need to tell you something, but please, don't overreact. The shift in her tone made my stomach clench. The excitement I had felt moments ago started to fade, replaced by a strange unease. I nodded, signaling for her to continue, though something inside told me I might not like what I was about to hear. Then she dropped the bombshell. I've been having an affair with a married man for the past year, she said. Taking a deep breath, she admitted that she had been involved with a married man for the past year. What started as a casual fling, meant to be nothing more than a stress-free relationship, had unexpectedly turned into something deeper as they developed real feelings for each other. I couldn't believe my sister had been sleeping with a married man. It just felt so wrong. My heart ached for his unsuspecting wife. And who was this guy? Did I know him? And why had she kept this from me for so long? We talked all the time. I thought we were close, so why had she kept this a secret? I looked my sister straight in the eye and asked, Who is he? I was curious. Was it her neighbor? One of her friend's husbands? She didn't answer. She just sat there, silent, staring at me. I asked again, my curiosity growing, and this is when she finally replied. It's actually your husband. He's the father of my baby. I blinked, feeling as though the air had been sucked out of the room. Her words echoed in my head over and over again, but they didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had been sleeping with my husband? My heart pounded so loudly in my ears that I could barely hear anything else. A strange ringing filled my head, and for a moment I thought I might be sick. I searched her face, hoping and praying that this was some kind of cruel, twisted joke, that she would laugh and tell me she was just kidding, that she just wanted to mess with me, but there was no humor in her eyes, just guilt. My sister just sat there letting me process everything, as it then slowly dawned on me that she was very much speaking the truth. I stared down at her belly and back at her face as my sister finally broke the silence, saying she never expected my husband to be the one to get her pregnant, especially after she had lost all hope when her ex left her. She admitted that yes, she knew she had done me wrong, but then with a shrug she added that she didn't really feel guilty because in the end, according to her, God had given her exactly what she wanted, a baby. I looked at her in disbelief and asked how she could say these things so casually, as if they meant nothing, like she hadn't just admitted to sleeping with my husband. But she just sighed and told me that it would take time for me to wrap my mind around it, insisting that eventually I would come to accept how beautiful this situation was. She reminded me of how desperate and depressed she had been for years for a child, and said that out of all the men she had found, it was my man who had finally given her what she wanted, as if that somehow made all of this okay. Something inside me snapped. My hands clenched into fists, and I shook my head at her in disbelief. Are you actually hearing yourself right now? I spat. You slept with my husband, got pregnant, and now you expect me to just accept it like some kind of miracle? I furiously demanded to know how it all began, as I still didn't want to believe this was real. My sister took a deep breath before confessing that it started a year ago when my husband traveled to her city for a work trip. She explained that they had gone out for dinner that night. I remember that dinner because, ironically, it was I who had encouraged my husband to meet up with her. Since he was going to be in her city anyway, I had suggested he check in on her, spend some time together, and back then it had seemed like a harmless, thoughtful idea. She went on to say that they had a little too much to drink that night, and one thing led to another. They ended up back at her place where they crossed a line that should never have been crossed. After that first night, they both told themselves it was a mistake, something that should never have happened. The guilt, she claimed, had weighed heavily on them, and they promised it wouldn't happen again, but eventually they slept together again and again. But over the months, they continued to meet and hook up. They even started going out on proper dates. My sister told me that she and my husband just connected on a deeper level, and that he feels like home to her. Hearing this made my head spin. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. It all made sense now why my sister had suddenly started asking so many questions about my husband this past year. Why he had been going on more frequent work trips, and why she was always blushing around him, and why he seemed oddly jealous whenever I encouraged my sister to go out and date someone. The signs had been there all along, yet I had been too naive to see them. I had missed every single warning, completely blind to the fact that something had been building between them right in front of me. My sister then told me that while she did feel a bit guilty, she never imagined that something so positive like her pregnancy would come from the affair. She admitted that she was aware of how the family would react once the truth came out, but she remained confident that my husband would stand by her and protect both her and the child. Without a hint of hesitation, she informed me that he would be serving me with divorce papers very soon so that he could start a new life with her and their baby. I was at a loss for words. Everything she had just told me was too much to process, too much to accept. My mind was spinning, my heart shattered beyond repair. I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. I told her to leave. I didn't want to see her face, not after everything she had just confessed. Rage boiled inside me, but no matter how furious I was, I couldn't bring myself to lash out at a pregnant woman, even one who had betrayed me so deeply. She tried to argue, insisting that she had come here specifically to see me and to work things out with my husband so that they could both leave together. She wanted to stay, to talk, to explain, but I was done listening. I marched to the door, flung it open, and screamed at her to get out before I did something I would regret. My sister looked startled for a moment, clearly not expecting me to react so aggressively, but then, instead of showing any remorse, she scoffed and called me a psycho before storming out. Now she's staying at a motel, furious at me for not letting her stay. AITA, Update 1. It's only been a few hours since I posted this. I've been crying non-stop since my sister left. My heart feels like it's been ripped apart. No matter how many times I replay everything in my head, I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that my husband and my sister, the two people I trusted most in this world, would betray me like this. In one day, I have lost both of them. But more than the anger I feel towards them, I find myself consumed with anger at myself. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the signs? Every little moment, every suspicious thing I brushed aside. It all made sense now. Maybe if I had noticed earlier, if I had confronted them before it went this far, I could have stopped this from happening, but now it's too late. And I don't know how to live with that. My coward of a husband hasn't come home yet, nor is he answering his phone. I suppose it's no coincidence. He must have already known exactly why my sister was coming over, which is probably why he conveniently found an excuse to stay out all day. But that's fine. Let him take his time. I have all the patience in the world to wait for him to walk through that door. Because when he does, he's going to face every ounce of the rage I've been holding back. For everyone asking why my sister is at a motel, instead of staying with our parents, the answer is simple. She can't go to them. She's never had a good relationship with them, and they're constantly at odds. They fight all the time. And I know for a fact that if they found out about her pregnancy, they would have a lot of questions. They would tear her apart the moment they found out she had an affair with my husband. She knows it just as well as I do, and that's why she's hiding out in a motel, acting like I'm the villain for not letting her stay with me. Update 2. It's past midnight and my husband finally came home some time ago. He was a bit drunk. I guess he must have been drinking to gather the courage to face me, or maybe to numb the guilt. Either way, he didn't need me to say a single word. The moment he saw my face, he knew I already knew what he had done. He stumbled onto the sofa, his whole body sagging, and then, to my disbelief, he started to cry. Through his tears, he confessed that he knew I was going to hate him forever for what he had done, and that he wished he could go back in time and undo everything. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just looked at him, and in the calmest voice I could muster, told him that my sister was pregnant and was going to be having his child soon. She also expected him to hand me divorce papers. Hearing this, he shook his head frantically, his eyes wide with desperation. He dropped to his knees in front of me, pleading, saying that he never wanted to leave me. He swore that my sister had been forcing him to divorce me, pressuring him to be with her, but that he didn't want that. He then countered that he could just pay child support to her child and continue living with me, as if that would somehow fix everything. As if money could undo the damage he had caused. As if I could just erase the fact that he had betrayed me with my own sister. He looked at me, waiting for an answer, but all I could feel was anger. Not only was he a coward for cheating on me, but he didn't even want to step up for the sake of his unborn child. He confessed that what he had with my sister was just physical, that it never really meant anything to him. He said that as if reducing their affair to meaningless would make me hurt any less. I pointed out that my sister clearly believed otherwise, that she was under the impression that they were in love. But he immediately shook his head, rejecting the idea outright. He insisted that he could never love my sister. "Oh, come on, she's lonely and desperate," he scoffed. "She'd sleep with anyone. I could never love a woman like that, let alone raise a baby with her." His words stunned me. This was the same man my sister believed would protect her and the baby. The same man she was so sure would leave me to start a new life with her. Yet here he was, speaking about her with nothing but disgust. "If she wants to keep the child, fine," he continued coldly. "But I want nothing to do with it. If it were up to me, I'd never let her go through with the pregnancy. This whole thing has been a huge mistake." He kept repeating over and over again how much he loves me, how he can't imagine a life without me, and how he didn't want my sister to break our relationship. He begged for my forgiveness, practically groveling at my feet, but I refused to say a single word to him. I had nothing left to say. Now, as I sit here writing this, my husband is asleep in the guest room. I have kicked him out of our bedroom because I can't stand to be near him. I need sleep. My mind is exhausted. My heart is shattered and my whole world has been flipped upside down. Tomorrow, I'll think about my next steps with a clearer mind. Update 3. It's been a while since my last update and a lot has happened. First and foremost, I exposed my sister's and my husband's affair to everyone. I invited my sister over, telling her that we needed to talk face to face with my husband present as well. Both of them assumed it was just going to be the three of us, probably expecting some dramatic confrontation where they could try to manipulate me again. But what they didn't know was that I had already told my parents everything and they were furious. The moment my sister walked through the door, my parents arrived right behind her, ready to tear into both her and my husband. The moment my sister saw our parents walk into the house, all the color drained from her face. She looked scared. My father wasted no time. He stormed right up to her and yelled in her face, his voice filled with rage and disappointment. He called her a cheating scumbag and demanded to know how she could betray her own sister like this. He made it clear that her child would never be accepted into our family. My sister just stood there stunned, unable to defend herself. My mother just walked up to my husband and slapped him hard. Then she let loose, calling him every curse word she could think of, cursing him for destroying our marriage, for humiliating me, for betraying everything we had built together. At that moment, I felt so validated. My parents had my back, and watching them stand up for me like that made me feel stronger than I had in weeks. My sister tried desperately to convince my parents that she and my husband were in love and that he wanted to be with her, not me. She painted this whole fantasy where they were meant to be together and insisted that I was the one standing in the way of their so-called happiness. Without saying a word, I pulled out my phone and played a recording, one that my husband had no idea existed. What he didn't know was that the night he came home drunk and guilt-ridden and confessed everything to me, I had recorded the entire thing. In the recording, he could be heard saying that my sister's pregnancy was a mistake, that he wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. He even called her desperate and said he could never love a woman like her. I watched as my sister's face twisted in shock and humiliation. My husband's head dropped, knowing there was no way to talk himself out of this now. My father turned on my sister again, demanding if she still wanted to claim this was true love. My mother looked disgusted, shaking her head at both of them. At that moment, it was game over for them. I looked my sister dead in the eyes and told her the harsh truth. She was nothing more than a body my husband had used. That didn't mean he actually wanted her, and it certainly didn't mean he would step up and take care of her child. But still, I congratulated her. Congratulations, I said, on ruining your life over a man who doesn't even want you or your child. The reality is that she had just walked straight into a trap of her own making, and there was no way out of it. Sure, she and my husband could have their child, but knowing him, the coward that he was, he would never actually step up and accept her or the baby publicly. Not only does he not love her, but his family is also deeply religious. Affairs are unforgivable, and children born from affairs are considered even worse. His family prides itself on their morals and values, and I know for a fact they would be disgusted when they found out what their perfect son had done. And just to make sure they knew everything, I had already sent them an email complete with the recording attached. Now there was no way he could lie, no way he could manipulate his way out of this. At that moment, my sister completely broke down. She sobbed uncontrollably, finally realizing the mess she had created for herself. My husband, on the other hand, stood there looking embarrassed, and that's when I pulled out the divorce papers and handed them to him. I looked him straight in the eye and informed him that we were done. I never wanted to see his face again. My husband immediately panicked and he started apologizing over and over again, dropping to his knees, begging for my forgiveness. He swore that he regretted everything, that he would never even look at my sister again. But I didn't care. His words meant nothing to me anymore. My sister stood there looking completely stunned and broken down, no longer the smug, confident person she had been when she first confessed. I made it clear once again, I was done with both of them. There was no redemption, no fixing this. Now I'm simply looking forward to finalizing my divorce and finally being free from my ex. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.